I saw somebody said they wanted to see some orcs.
I don't have any orcs for this one yet,
Oh.
but we
What
are
about
working
that?
on
What
some
about
orc
that
stuff.
one image?
What one image?
We're now going around and taking a look at the different races that didn't quite make it into Alpha 1. One of those particular races, as we're modeling the base body for the Renkai.
That's right, it happened. Orc fans rejoice. In this month's Ashes of Creation developer update, we have got our first look at one of the two Kaivek orc races, that being the Renkai. As a wise man said,
they are going for a very World of Warcraft-esque orc.
And that's not a bad thing, at least in my opinion. Both the red skin and green skin versions that were shown looked amazing. I absolutely loved them, and this was an early work in progress that Margaret and Stephen were hesitant to even show. But this does give us a very, very, very good look into what the Renkai are going to look like on a base level. I hope orc fans out there are as satisfied as I am. This is what I've been waiting for most from an Ashes of Creation developer update since I started following the project. Stephen let us know the Renkai will be the tallest playable race in Ashes of Creation, and with how well they've done with this model, it makes me incredibly excited to see in the future when they show us the first VEC models as well. Surely this means by Alpha 2, Renkai will be a playable race, so I think I just found my Alpha 2 main race. And that wasn't the only new model we were shown of a playable race in this month's developer update. Here we have the new beefed up Dunir as promised from last month's update. I don't have to tell you if you follow this game's development that this is a huge improvement, and I'm not alone in thinking that this looks awesome. We got to see two new mounts in-game, the first one being a bit of a stylistic departure from their past mount designs, but not in a bad way. Next, we've got something pretty huge, literally.
So here in this video, and this is the first one, right? This is
Yes.
unmerged.
Yeah.
Here Clayton's demonstrating, the unmerged 1000 rendering. So by merging, now you can see that the same 1000 players who are wearing the same armors as previously are actually having a 300% increase, 300 to 400% increase in the performance of the FPS. So it went from 7 to about 21 on average. The reason why this optimization is important is because we intend to have, our goal right now is 250 versus 250, but we want to be able to have, or at least target 1,000 players for a particular battle, right? We've mentioned that in the past. We want to try to get up to 500 versus 500.
This is a really neat sneak peek. Intrepid are holding true to their want to make a truly massively multiplayer game. In Alpha 1, even the 50v50 sieges felt big to me. I can't even imagine 250 versus 250, let alone a total 1,000 player battle. And there's no reason we should assume Intrepid will limit this technology to the player versus player battles. It's already a planned feature where as nodes progress, there will be large-scale PvE events where a dragon, for example, attacks a node and all of its hundreds or thousands of citizens are going to be in there on the walls doing whatever they're doing, defending their node. The next thing we got to see was a large-scale simulation of the node system on the whole map of Vera.
Here you can see, you can augment the tick rate on this, right, to kind of show passage of time. And you can show the initial territories on the Varen map of what these particular nodes have governance over, or their zones of influence, as we like to call them, right? As the simulation of this begins to advance and nodes begin to expand their territory and they begin to take over nearby nodes as a result of their growth, you start to see these power level, these ratings that are applied here on specific nodes, and that determines what type of takeover power it has and what it pushes back against for other nodes that are looking to take over new territory as they advance. So this also simulates sieges. It also simulates events. So each of these nodes will have a health ticker. When that health ticker is impacted, it'll stop gaining power or gaining or slow down in its gaining of experience. And that's because certain events can affect a node by disabling certain services, disabling buildings. If players don't respond to that horde of zombies that have, come out of the nearby ravine, then those zombies can attack stables. They can attack service buildings and prevent particular types of quests or activities and services from happening until it's repaired. It simulates that. It simulates the sieges. If a particular node has a certain frequency that's set where we want to see randomization of how nodes get affected by sieges. Sometimes they'll be destroyed in the simulation. Sometimes they'll be have disabled services, again similar to an event because they didn't succeed necessarily at sieging the node, but they did succeed at disabling some of the buildings as part of that siege. This representation does show 111 nodes as part of this particular simulation. I'm not sure what the tick frequency is on this video. It might be something on the magnitude of like every second is probably 12 to 24 hours. So over time, you start seeing these larger node systems building up to eventually where you might see, cities and metropolises after some period of time.
We were shown a new death animation and given a little bit of info as to how this death animation will affect gameplay in Ashes of Creation, especially PvP gameplay.
You have this cool effect that is typically like a level up or a resurrection, but the death is always just a character falling to the ground. And, I've always felt like in MMOs that's very lackluster. So we talked a little bit about potentially having an Ashes oriented effect that occurs on death. And of course, the reason for that is the lore behind how death and resurrection, right? How death and resurrection exists within Ashes of Creation. There's necessary information that must be conveyed, of course, to nearby players. One is the location of the body if you want to select them and attempt to resurrection. Two is does that interactable have equipment or gatherables or something that you can interact with a inventory and grab items from. But those can be conveyed through lit embers that exist within the ash pile. You should still be able to select the ash pile to potentially resurrect. When you select it, you're still going to get the character name above. This is a type of stuff that we want to make sure we still convey even though we're implementing this type of effect. When you think about combat, especially mass combat, and you're fighting left and right, and people are just bursting into flames as they're dying, I think that's just going to be such a much more epic event with those types of effects going off left and right than just watching bodies fall to the ground.
Tons of interesting stuff shown in this month's developer update. I hope you were as excited as me to see the new Orcs, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.
Orc main in WoW. It looks like I can finally relive my dreams of having a thick orc mummy in Ashes of Creation 2. Before moving on,